Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we're going to talk about what is going on in the city of Boston, because Mayor Wu of Boston recently got caught up in a bit of a controversy because she decided to throw out invitations for a Christmas party. However, this was a race-exclusive Christmas party, i.e., no whites were allowed at this Christmas party, and this is absolutely shameful. It's ridiculous. We're going to go over it, even though my commentary is going to be super obvious, and then we're going to talk about her response to the criticism of it, because contrary to what you might have think should have happened post this revelation of this party actually existing, she's actually doubled down on it because white people are evil white racism, oh my god, the whites, they're so evil and they're so racist. But before we get into that, I want to thank everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform. Now, the way that this story went down was actually pretty funny. It was pretty entertaining, because what ended up happening was that this party, which is for electeds of color, whites need not apply, accidentally had the invitation sent out to the entire Boston City Council. And by the way, this is a relatively small group of people. I believe there's 13 members, 6 minorities, 7 evil white racists who are evil white and racist because they're white, and that makes them evil and therefore racist. And 15 minutes after the invitations were mistakenly sent out to all people, a follow-up invitation or invitation rescindment was sent exclusively to the white council members that said, "You're not invited, you were born with the wrong skin pigmentation, do not show up to this party, whites need not apply, you're disgusting, you're racist, you're evil white and racist, how dare you, you disgust me." Now, what's hilarious about this is that people like Briahna Joy Gray immediately rushed to defend the racist mayor of the city of Boston.
Seems like, why can't they just have you can have a party to celebrate the strides people of color have made in all facets of life, including being elected to Congress, that like everyone can attend?
Okay. I'm sure they'll take that under advisement. And we should never have any specific parties or events to celebrate any discrete groups. Not veterans, not people with physical impairments, not people who are celebrating on St. Patrick's Day.
So what I love about this is that Briahna Joy Gray is incredibly disingenuous and incredibly dumb. St. Patrick's Day, even though it is rooted in Irish history and there's a strong Irish presence at St. Patrick's Day parades and parties, is not exclusive to Irish people. Anybody can celebrate it. And in fact, if you go out on the streets of New York City, you go out on the streets of anywhere, you will see a bunch of different people wearing green on the day of, and if you check their last names, they're not going to be Irish sounding last names. There's going to be a lot of people coming together in order to enjoy the event. Puerto Rican Day Parade, which is something that also happens in New York City. The other half of my ethnicity. Guess what? People show up to it that aren't Puerto Rican. People show up to celebrate, and they even have a saying for St. Patrick's Day or for the Puerto Rican Day Parade, which is everyone's Irish for today. Everyone's Puerto Rican for today, because in the United States of America, we tend to try to not divide people up along racial lines. I know that's difficult for Briahna Joy Gray. I know that's something that really upsets her.
Patrick's Day, not a Jewish celebration, not any discrete groups should ever have separate holiday parties or events in addition to the ones that are holistically celebrated.
But it's funny that she would throw this out there as if that this is a normal thing, when one need only ask the question, which is, if white legislatures threw a party and specifically said no blacks allowed, even if that party had no taxpayer funding attached to it, do you think that that would be okay? Do you think it would be okay to not only mass invite everybody to the whites only party or the no blacks party, and then after accidentally inviting some of the blacks, sending them follow-ups, rescinding their invitations based solely on the color of their skin? Yet Briahna Joy Gray is going to defend this because, oh my god, white people, evil white racism, oh my god, what about the white people?
Do you think a whites-only holiday party would generate some kind of backlash? I
think a Hanukkah event that had only white people, or a Celtic event that only...
creed-based events, not based on skin color.
So for some reason, Briahna Joy Gray is throwing out the Hanukkah party. Hanukkah is specifically a religious holiday for Jewish people, and guess what? In my campus, when we had events for different cultures, for their little clubs or whatever, they didn't exclude anybody from their particular party. So if there was a Hanukkah party and I happened to be nearby and I happened to know somebody in there, they'd be like, hey, come in, grab some food, hang out with us, even though I'm not Jewish, not remotely Jewish. The Islamic clubs, by the way, I had friends in those clubs on my campus too. Very welcoming on college campuses. I'm sure that their club, based on their religion, is meant to be somewhat exclusive, at least in theory, but they did not practice this because it would be uncool in order to do so. We had a West Indies club. They would throw events for everybody and make food from the various black populations in the West Indies. So, Briahna, no, you're wrong. You're incorrect. You're not even close.
We live in a country that has created a legal tiered hierarchy of a racist de jure system for the majority of the time that the country has existed. Only since my parents have been alive has that de jure system of segregation and apartheid with different laws for different people because of how they look been ended. And as a consequence, a lot of social and economic barriers still exist for people who are from those historically marginalized groups.
On top of that, Briahna then goes into this whole spiel about how, the evil white racism, it's everywhere in the country. There's all this evil white racism. It's under every rock. Oh my God, did you hear that noise? It was out there in the world. I think that noise might have been evil white racism. But the thing is, Briahna, this woman is the mayor of Boston. Michelle Wu, she is in a position of power. Your whole argument right here is that racism is prejudice plus power. Well, guess what? She is holding currently the most powerful position in the city of Boston. And she's also Asian. Let's be perfectly honest about how Asians do in the United States of America. It's significantly better than white people. So this person in a position of power who is in a higher tier on average, because apparently group data is how we're supposed to judge this, is throwing a race-exclusive policy against a demographic of people that do worse on average than her, that are in lower positions of power than her, and it's ridiculous and absurd, and yes, it is divisive, and you're crying about it, you're saying, oh my God, so sad, so much evil white racism, the evil white racism really makes me sad, doesn't really do anything for me, cry me a river, Briahna.
And sometimes members of those groups who are still advocating in many instances for substantive equality because, again, those barriers only fell very recently, want to celebrate those accomplishments and their own accomplishments as a discrete group.
If this had been white people doing this in any state legislature, and by the way, I'm sure somebody could dig up an incident where something like this happened, there would be outrage. If this was a private party, it wouldn't matter. If this were a taxpayer-funded party, it would be a damn civil rights investigation. So no, stop crying, stop your disingenuous nonsense, stop playing the victim. You're successful and on the Hill. This woman is the mayor of Boston, and they are abusing that power in racist ways.
That the ire seems to only be articulated when certain kinds of people get together, when those people are diverse racially as opposed to other discrete ethnic groups. We see this every year when there are complaints about a Caribbean Day parade, but not the violence and destruction that often comes around a St. Patrick's Day parade.
So you know what I love about this segment right here is that Briahna Joy Gray is talking about things that she knows nothing about. She's talking about things that go down in the city of New York. So she just compared the St. Patty's Day parade, which by the way happens in Manhattan, and the supposed violence that happens in and around that day to a Caribbean parade that she didn't want to name by name, but I know exactly what she's referring to, which is, of course, the West Indies parade. By the way, this is a parade that actually happens in Brooklyn. It happens in and around the Crown Heights area, and all one needs to do is look up in any given year the level of violence at the West Indies parade versus the level of violence that happens at the St. Patrick's Day parade. And again, St. Patty's Day, celebrated by all the bars in the city. A lot of people enjoy it. There's way more people out, but guess what? There aren't stories about hails of gunfire popping off at the St. Patrick's Day parade in the same way that the West Indies parade is. I mean, this is just the cursory search on what goes down at the West Indies parade versus the St. Patty's parade. New York Post, at least 2 shot along New York City parade route, while historically bloody J overt festival remains violence-free. So in this particular incident, the violence happened on the parade route, but not overall. And by the way, the 2 being shot along the parade parade route for the West Indies parade was considered a success compared to the previous years. Now, you might think it's a little bit weird to talk about 2 people being shot in a hail of bullets along the parade route for the West Indies parade, but the thing is, that is a success. The violence occurring along the parade route, but not actually in the parade, compared to previous years, that's an elevation of the status of the West Indies parade. And by the way, one of the ways that this was achieved is that the NYPD, days before the parade, actually met with 40 leaders of various gangs in and around Brooklyn and told them that this year needed to be violence-free. If they were going to do anything, do it away from the parade. There is no such set of headlines, no such set of articles for the St. Patrick's Day parade. So, Briahna, you're lying. You are a liar. You're trying to excuse racism, and your apples to orange comparison is absolutely embarrassing. Now, by the way, there was somebody who was actually killed after the festivities ended at around 8:50 p.m. in and around the parade route. A 51-year-old man shot to death. And again, this is considered a success for the West Indies parade. This is considered them nailing it by comparison to previous years, where lawyers and people just trying to attend this festival have been killed, beaten, attacked, robbed, and all of that, because that's standard. So yes, Briahna, there is a reason people are concerned about the West Indies parade versus these other different parades like the St. Paddy's parade, because the violence is off the charts in that one.
If people really believe that Michelle Wu is a racist who treats white people badly, and is discriminating against them, they should take those charges very seriously and provide evidence of it.
Briahna, if you want me to provide proof of this, let me do it for you. Let's say that an elected official decided to throw a racially discriminatory party. The evil race that found out about this party that was being excluded got the invitation by mistake, and then her staffer decided to tell them that they weren't invited due to the fact that they were white, and then she doubled down in the press later. As we found out, she just said the only mistake is that the white people ended up finding out about it.
I think we've had individual conversations with everyone so people understand that it was truly just an honest mistake that went out in typing the email field, and I look forward to celebrating with everyone at the holiday parties that we will have besides this one as well. So it is my intention that we can, again, be a city that lives our values and create space for all kinds of communities to come together.
The mayor apologizing for any confusion that the original email created.
That would be the proof of racism for you right there, Briahna.
But as I just said, I don't have any opposition to a themed event that celebrates the accomplishments of minorities or calls attention to the specific plight or history of a minority group. But doing it exclusively just for people of a certain skin color strikes a lot of people as a betrayal of the very norm we're trying to get to, where people aren't treated differently based on that reality. Okay, well.
So I wish Robbie would actually have a bit more of a spine, give a little more oomph in his statements, have a little bit more power in his words, because he's stating the most obvious true things humanly possible. But Brianna's just like, okay, no whites allowed though. And then he's like, oh, I guess we'll move on from the conversation since you're an anti-white racist too, Briahna. And I guess that makes it okay.
Anyway.
Robbie, you know if they had a women's group, no one would have complained. If they had emailed all of the women on the council and said we're having a ladies' holiday party, nobody would have complained.
Well, there are recognized differences between men and women. Men and women are different. Black people and white people are not.
So Briahna actually makes the first coherent, solid, rational point that she could make, which was if this was a women's celebration, then that would be considered perfectly fine. And I actually agree with her there. Of course, Robbie then pushes back by saying that there are acknowledged differences between men and women, differences that you cannot erase away, even though the left-wing progressives are trying to erase those differences away. And then Briahna responds by saying discrimination back in the 60s, checkmate.
Well, tell that to the government as of my mother's 5th birthday.
Yeah, because there was evil white racism against the blacks back in the day, and that was in the law. Therefore, we should reinstitute that racism against white people for revenge in the law with politicians, including the head of the Boston city government, because that's sensible. Because, segregation is wrong, but only because the minorities didn't have the power to enforce the segregation.
I don't. You just don't think this? Do you don't think this was a bad idea? You don't think there's an elected official? It's not embarrassing for her it's embarrassing, first of all, to send an email inviting a bunch of people to a party and then saying, sorry, the whites can't attend. That's obviously a screw up.
Yeah, I think anytime there's well, first of all, I don't understand why they couldn't have told everybody. I don't think it should have been a secret because there's nothing to be ashamed of. So it's embarrassing only because there was an effort, apparently, not to clue everybody into the existence of this party.
So I appreciate that Robbie's trying to connect with his co-host on a basic level, but of course, Briahna's just completely warped by ideology and doesn't even see the humanity of groups that she doesn't like. So she says, oh, well, they shouldn't have kept this a secret. They should have put no whites in big bold letters and said, you're not welcome here out front instead of trying to hide it. It makes it seem like they felt like they were doing something wrong because, spoiler alert, racial discrimination is wrong. They were doing that. And yes, they're doing something wrong. Also, I find it kind of hilarious. People have pointed this out that Michelle Wu is married to a white person. So a lot of these left wingers, especially these women, seem to be anti-white in the streets, but super pro-white in the sheets, if you know what I mean, which I find to be incredibly interesting. But yeah, this video is ridiculous and absurd in every way. Briahna tries to play the victim in all these different ways, and it's pathetic and absurd.
Like, it's so laughable at this point. I mean, when I was at a law firm, first of all, none of the people of color wanted to be involved in any of this. The white heads of the law firm foisted responsibilities on those of us who weren't white, the very few of us who weren't white, to basically run these programs in these groups, often at the expense of the substantive work that we should have been doing.
So Briahna ends up closing with this note, which just undercuts everything that she said before and is ridiculous and absurd. She says when she worked at a law firm, the white people at the head of the law firm, they said that you minorities need to throw these diversity events, and that's the thing. You see, people of color segregating white people, that is a good thing. It's good for people of color to do so because that's fine, because white people are racist. Gosh, aren't white people evil, white, and racist? But also, if you don't like it, you know who actually did that? You know who actually hoisted the divine right to segregate out white people? It was actually evil, white, racist. So white people are responsible if you don't like it, but if you do like it, or if you're on the fence, then it's good and it's perfectly justified and she supports it. But also, white people did it and they separated people out because evil white racism. So yeah, overall, this is ridiculous and absurd. Elected officials should not be conducting themselves in this way. And by the way, I say that with fully acknowledging that in the private world, you should be able to invite or not invite whoever you want to your party. I just think it would be a scandal. I think it would be weird. I think it would be crazy if white people did this in any state legislature across the country. And we know for damn sure Briahna Joy would be freaking out, melting down, pulling the hair out of her head if she was covering a story on the reverse of this. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the Hill Rising, supporting racial segregation. Till next time.